Join Tarcia on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey Podcast. I am your host, Tarcia Smith, and welcome to yet another week and another journey. Before we dive in, let me remind you to like, subscribe, follow, do all the things, and then go tell all your friends to do all the things and copy and paste and repeat, okay? So we are going to jump in. Today we have a transracial adoptee by the name of Jade. Hi, Jade.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to hear this story. So my first question I want to ask you is, what is your nationality?
My nationality is I'm Mexican.
Okay.
Yes.
And you were adopted, or who adopted you?
I was adopted into a white family, so I was in and out of foster care for the first 8 years of my life.
Oh, stop right there. That's already tea. So you have memories of your birth, your biological family.
Yes, I do. And
So
I actually reconnected with them years later.
okay. So when you were a little girl, what was going on in the home that made you go in and out of foster care?
As far as I know, and then bits and pieces from what people have told me and what I remember, my mom, I was one of 8 children.
Okay.
And she was not in a stable place to take care of us. My younger 5 siblings were actually only like a year apart. So she kind of had us just back to back.
Yeah.
Things were not well in the home as far as things that we needed and things like that. I don't blame her. I have no hatred towards her.
Yeah.
It was just the circumstances of her time and her upbringing.
Understood.
So from there, we did go into foster care. I did go into foster care with my siblings. And I bounced around from home to home until I was 8. So the first few years of my life, I was with 2 of my sisters in one foster home for about 3 to 4 years. And they were actually in the process of adopting us, which is a crazy story. I've actually reconnected with this foster family, and we have a good relationship. But they were in the process of adopting us. And then CPS showed up at their door one day and was like, by the way, we found a family for them. So pack their bags. And we were gone within the hour. Yes.
Okay, so
I mean, it's a
really
lot
speechless. Yeah. And so you said you had 5 siblings, but you were with 2 of your siblings. So 3 of you were moving around together. Where were your other 2 siblings? Do you know?
They, at the time, were still with my mom. I think she had just had my younger siblings, my younger brother and sister, and she was still with them. I think maybe they were giving her a chance to raise them. But then they eventually ended up in foster care, which I didn't find out till years later. And when we reconnected, they were living in an orphanage at the time.
Oh, goodness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you, within the hour, you have to pick up, move.
Right.
Back to with CPS, and where do you go from there?
We were actually going to our adopted family, which was a white couple. And I don't even think we were with them that long. I want to say maybe a couple months. And then they decided they were getting divorced and no longer wanted us.
Girl.
So we went back into the system, but instead of taking us back to the previous family who we were with, which was a Mexican-American family.
I was just getting ready to ask you that. Okay.
So the first family we went into was a Mexican-American family, and I was very fluent in Spanish. I was up to, with my culture and connected and everything.
Sure.
Like that. Went to this potential adoptive family. They said, oh, we don't want them anymore. And then we were sent from there, which I read my file. We were sent from there to a therapeutic foster home.
What?
In the middle of...
What's that?
I don't know.
I thought you were going to teach me something. I'm like, what's that?
It was not therapeutic at all. So I don't know if it was just a classification that some foster families do to get a little bit more money. Yes.
Do you see the look? My mouth is open. Do you see the look on my face?
That's therapeutic. Why people talk about adoptee rights and things like that in Texas. It's wild.
Girl, we're not even 5 minutes in. We already on the wild ride.
So we went to a therapeutic foster home and was with them for a few years. And mind you, we were there with so many other children of all ages, from newborns all the way up to almost turning 18. Children there with babies, babies having babies, plus their own biological children. I want to say there was at least 15 to 20 people,
So
children in the home.
somebody in CPS thought it was okay to take you and your two siblings,
Hmm.
uproot you
Yep.
from the first home,
Hmm.
drop you off someplace else. That doesn't work out. And then instead of taking you back to where you
Yep.
were comfortable, let's put them here in
Yes.
chaos.
Oh, complete chaos. And mind you, within that home, that was the first time I had experienced a whole array of abuse in all forms.
Talk about it.
I mean, it
Talk about
was,
it.
I just don't understand how, like you were saying, in their mind, that seemed more appropriate to send them into a family, another white family as well, and be even more further stripped away from their culture and their surroundings, their familiar surroundings, to then experience abuse.
And how old are you at this point?
Um, at this point, I want to say I'm between the ages of five and six,
Oh,
and
girl, you
then from
still
there, I
little.
stayed with them
You
until I
still
was,
little.
yep, until I was 8. Yeah.
3 years of
Hmm.
trauma. That's the word I'm looking for. Three
Right.
years of
And it was
trauma.
a very alt-right conservative therapeutic foster home. So take from that what you will.
Hey.
Corporal punishment was something we experienced on a daily. And I actually researched these foster families, just to
Yeah,
see where they're at now. The
sure.
father is a football coach at a Christian university, and the mother is a head of a special education department at a local school
In
in
Texas.
Texas.
Okay.
Yes, blows my mind.
Yeah, you.
Hmm.
I'm never ready. I'm never ready for these stories. Okay. So we're only 5. Do you, girl, and your siblings are younger than you? Older.
Um, three of my siblings are younger than me, and then I have
Oh, the ones that are that are moving with you, the ones that are at this
the
foster.
one that are living with me. I have one that's a year older and one that's a year younger.
Okay, so all y'all are little. If
Yes.
now because you were so small, I don't know if you remember, but do you happen to remember how you felt in all this?
Confused most of the time, and then wondering, like, constantly questioning myself, like, what did I do to get here? Like, why didn't
Mm.
they want me? Because it was always like, oh, well, they didn't want you, this other family wanted you instead. But no, when I reconnected with the first foster family, I
Hmm.
finding out the real truth and putting the pieces
Oh,
together. And
hold on, we'll get there. Don't spill that yet. We'll get there. Hold on. We'll get there. Okay, so we're only 5, and you spend the next 3 years here, and so now you're 8.
right.
Just out of curiosity, because you said it was complete chaos, I take it CPS is still coming and checking the way they're supposed
No,
to
I
check.
don't really remember them coming. I don't remember these
Wow.
visits. And I remember even with that foster family, we would move around to different homes, which as an adult, I don't understand how that was acceptable.
I'm
Yeah.
still stuck on the fact that babies were having babies in this home.
Yeah. They had like a 16 or 17-year-old child there who had a little girl who was living in the home as well.
So everybody just in foster care.
Right.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they had their own biological children.
How many do you remember?
They had 3 biological children
Do you happen to remember what the relationship was like with the biological children and you guys?
versus us.
Yeah.
Oh, so all the biological children had their own rooms, and then all the foster kids would share a room. So I remember for myself, I was in a room upstairs with, I want to say, 6, 7 other girls.
How big was this house?
It was not very big now that I think, now that I'm looking back. I mean, it was big. It was a big size house, but I mean, that's a lot of
That's a lot
kids.
of bodies in a home.
Right. And mind
I'm
you, we're stuck in there with kids from all different backgrounds,
right.
people that experienced abuse and traumas and things like that. And up until then, being moved around in foster care is trauma in and of itself, but I had not
Mm-hmm.
experienced
That
the
level.
abuse.
Right.
I had not
until
experienced things like that. So when I got there, I was exposed to that
that.
right off the bat.
Okay, so the day comes when they remove you from this place.
Hmm.
Does that happen very quickly?
I remember like one or two meetings with my adoptive family,
Okay.
and it was another white family, very conservative Christian family, and they had two biological sons.
Mm-hmm.
Their sons were in their teens. I remember that. And they adopted myself and then my two sisters with. And then while we were with that family, we discovered that my younger brother and sister were also in foster care in the orphanage, so they adopted them as well.
Okay, so they've adopted all of you, and then they have their own biological children.
Correct.
Okay, so now we've landed somewhere. What's it
Uh-huh.
like in this home?
I really wonder how these people pass these background checks, and how
Hold
they.
on, I just have to say something. For those that are listening, you should have saw the look on her face just then. The
Um,
look on your face was like, girl, go ahead. Go
so
ahead.
I was adopted when I was 8 from them, and I
Mm-hmm.
stayed with them for a span of 5 years. Yes, so I was adopted twice. Yes, so we're still like halfway through this story. Um,
Oh, we got time. No, we got
so
plenty of time.
when being with them, again, they're a very conservative Christian white family who adopted 3 Mexican girls.
Mm-hmm.
You are not allowed to speak Spanish. That is not your culture. You are here in this house. We attend church every Sunday. Yes.
What do you mean you're not allowed to speak Spanish?
So as an adult, I had to relearn that stuff myself. I had to
Girl,
relearn my culture.
stop.
And
How do you
yes,
tell somebody they cannot speak in their native language? How do you do that?
I don't know, the white saviorism mentality.
I am floored. That is a
Mhm.
first. And I'm sure there are other stories like that, but at least on this show,
Oh, I
I've
know I'm not the
never
only one.
oh, I know you're not.
No, I'm not the only
But
one.
oh my God, you
Um,
cannot speak Spanish.
mhm.
And if
So,
you was there punishment if you were caught speaking Spanish?
um, not that I can remember, but
Okay.
living in that home, it was very abusive as well.
Oh my God. What
So
is
again,
happening?
yes, again, there was a lot of physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and sexual abuse.
Okay, I'm gonna tread lightly here. The
Okay.
sexual abuse from one of the brothers.
The brothers, the oldest. And mind you, this is why, when I see things on the news about families being, these Christian nationalist families being so pro-life and so, oh, you have to have the baby, and if you don't want them, just put them into foster care, put them into adoption. It really irks me, because it's like they do not realize the trauma of adoption and foster care is in and of itself, but then to add the layers of abuse that can go intertwined with it.
I'm floored right now.
I told the mother what was happening.
Okay.
I told her, because you learn in school. That's another thing, they want to take sex education away out of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I learned that that's wrong. People shouldn't be doing those things to you. So I'm learning about that in school, saying, hey, I know somebody at home who's doing these things to me.
Mm.
Tell a trusted adult. My trusted
Yeah,
adult at
yeah,
the time
yeah.
was my adopted mother.
Right.
I go and tell her. She tells me, oh, okay, I'll talk to him about it. So in my eyes, okay, this must be the equivalent of someone stealing a piece of candy. They're just going to get a slap on the wrist, because the way she minimized it
Right,
made it seem
right.
like it was a big deal, but not as big as I was making it seem.
Did she talk to him?
I don't know. I know the abuse continued and continued and continued. And it
And
wasn't
to you
until,
and your sisters, all of you?
I don't really want to speak on their stories, so
Got
I
you.
will only speak on my
Fair
own.
enough. Fair enough.
Um,
Okay.
but yes, I did experience a lot of abuse. And there were many times when they would leave us alone with him in the
And how much
abusive.
older was he?
I was 8 at the time. He was 16, 15,
Oh, well,
16.
he's almost an adult.
Yes. And it wasn't until the younger son, who, from my standpoint, was the favorite,
Mm-hmm.
until he walked in and saw something and brought it up to her and said, if you don't say something, I will.
And then what happened?
And then I just remember her gathering us, me and my siblings together and crying and, oh, my children, my babies, like, and we're just sitting there looking at her
Like we said something.
what do you mean?
Like,
Mind you,
but
I mean, we were beaten to a bloody pulp almost every other day by her. So it's like, I mean, the tears don't really mean anything to me at this point. It just seems like an act. I don't know.
and so
She's not crying for us at this point.
right. So at this point, how's your behavior at school?
Um, my behavior at school. Ooh, I know in and of myself, just
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a very strong personality. I'm
Okay.
outspoken. I'm very set in my values and my core beliefs. That doesn't sit too well, especially in a white culture. Women are supposed to be submissive. Women are not outspoken. Women listen to the authority of the household, which is the man.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always seen as a problem
As a
child.
problem.
Yep, and
Mm-hmm.
me and my sisters included. We all come from a very strong personality. Just from meeting
Sure.
my biological family, I could see where I get it from.
Sure.
In
And so I'm
school,
wondering, yeah. So in school, and in my mind, you're going through so much, and educators are supposed to hopefully be able to pick up on something's not right with that child, something's going on with that child.
mhm.
Or was it, did no one ever pick up on anything? Because you're going through a
um,
lot.
a lot of them, I feel like everything is rooted in racism. A lot of these schools that we would go to are predominantly white teachers.
Got you.
So again, there's another layer on top of
Got
it.
you. Another layer.
Um, so if I did have a treatment plan, it was just to jack me up on Ritalin for the duration in school. Oh, remember when Ritalin was just, handed out like
Yeah, they're handing out like candy. I remember. I mean,
mhm,
I personally was never on it, but yes, I do remember they were handing it out like candy. Yeah.
right? And then also we lived there. So when he got in trouble, it was reported, and I remember going and talking to people and having like an interview and stuff like that, and getting a physical exam and things like that. And he did end up getting convicted in the state of Texas. So he did go to a juvenile detention center until he
Okay.
was 21. Now, during that time frame, we actually moved from Texas to a smaller town in Washington State.
Oh,
Okay, and he's still in jail at this point. I still remember this day. There was a letter sitting on the counter of the kitchen, and in that letter was from like the state of Texas, letting the people know that the son is getting out of prison soon,
mm-hmm.
and he is eligible to come home. They need an address for him to be paroled out to, right? But he's not allowed to have contact with the victims or the survivors. So how does that work if he's the
Right.
child going back home with the victims and still in the house? Well, that creates a dilemma for the parents, right? So again, of course, the abuse is very bad, and it definitely escalated the last year that we were with them,
Mm-hmm.
living in this small town. And like I said, we were very adamant churchgoers. Well, the people in this church began taking notice. They began to see things weren't right. Something's not
Okay.
right with this family and these children.
It's amazing that you had to go to another state for someone to pick up on that.
Right. And it's amazing to me that we were not taken out of the home where there was reported abuse, even from the parents and the son. Like, and yet we still remained in that adoptive home.
Yeah. Yeah. You were not taken out of the home, but you were taken out of the home with your original family, the Mexican American family,
Hmm.
for who knows why. Probably no good reason.
Well, the adoption industry is of what? A business.
It's a business. So you stayed in that crazy place for 3 years, and then you come to more craziness for the
Hmm.
next 5 years. You go to
Correct.
Washington State, and then these people are like, mm-mm.
Something's going
So,
on.
so
So
how is that addressed?
I just remember a youth care, like the youth leader or whatever in the church
Mm-hmm.
came to the house, and she was hanging out with us and just like asking us these questions. Mind you, I'm very open and outspoken and vocal about
Yeah,
things
yeah.
because to children that are in abusive homes, that's their normal.
Right.
So if a child tells you these things and you're shocked as a person hearing them, it's not shocking to
It's
them
not
because that's
shocking
their
because
life. It is what
this
it
is
is.
what I do. This is yeah. Yeah.
So we're telling these people, like, this is what it is. You know, they keep telling us they're going to give us away. I still remember as a child writing out a list of rules because they would always say, if you're not good enough, we're going to give you away. If you don't behave, we're going to throw you away. You don't need to be here. Sorry, I'm getting a little.
It's okay.
I remember writing out a list of rules of everything I needed to do every single day to make sure
But they don't give you away.
that they wouldn't give me away. And mind you, I didn't necessarily want to be there, but it's better than the unknown. At least I
Right.
know what I'm facing here in the home.
Right.
Okay. So I remember showing that paper to the youth leader, and the look on her face, now that I'm older, looking back, it was like shocked. She was like, I cannot believe these children are living this way. So I remember she came to the house one day after school, and all of my siblings were there, and she came and picked us up, and they took us out to eat. They got us like ice cream, things like that. They took us to the church. And then I remember a bunch of police being there, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are all these police here?
Mm-hmm.
And they sat down and explained to us that you're not going back to that house. You're not going back there.
So, okay, in the midst of all this, is the son back home yet?
He's not back home yet. No.
Okay.
He's not back home.
Okay.
So they removed us from the home that day, and then that evening we were with another foster family.
White?
And they took all 5 of us children into that foster home.
Okay. Were they also white?
They were also white.
Okay.
Yes.
And what's it like here?
You know, it was interesting to say the least. I'm trying to figure out what I shouldn't say.
Okay. No problem. I get it. Was
The
there more
dad
of...
was very... Give me a second.
Sure.
My daughter's out here listening to... She's 11, so I'm like, some stuff I'm like... Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. In regards to living there, it was very nice home, but the father is a very alt-right Trump supporter.
Mm-hmm.
Very conservative Republican man, and he had very strict viewpoints on things.
Mm-hmm.
But he also had an underlining tone of being a predator himself. Yes.
My goodness. Y'all just cannot catch a break.
Yeah.
And
So
how
he
long
would
are you...
do
go
things
ahead.
that towed the line,
Yeah.
but didn't actually necessarily cross them.
Which is still too much. You're still doing too much, sir.
But still made you feel very uncomfortable as a child. At this point, I'm 12.
Right.
When I entered back into the foster care system, it made me feel very uncomfortable growing up, living in that house.
And how long were you there?
I was there for a couple of years, until I was 15.
Okay.
And I actually ended up running away. Yep.
Just you by yourself?
Yes,
Where
I
do you
ran
go?
away, and then my siblings, my 2 other sisters, they ran away with me. There was a big fight between me and the foster father. We got in a physical fight.
Oh.
Yes, very physical, hands-on fight.
And you're still in Washington at this point?
Washington State, yes. Mind you, I wasn't the one putting hands on an adult. He was putting the hands on me. Yes, and choking
Do you
me
remember
out.
why?
I had said a bad word.
Oh, okay.
I said a bad word to my siblings. Siblings do, fighting, and
Yeah.
my sibling went and told on me. And then the father decided he was going to wash my mouth out with soap to teach me a lesson. Took a bar of soap, and I didn't want to open my mouth.
Oh,
So he
yeah.
started.
That's some old school stuff right
Oh,
there.
very old school. So he grabbed the bar of soap and started punching me in the face with the bar of soap.
And you're 15.
Yes.
Like, you're not a little girl. You're 15.
Punching me in the face with it and hitting me in my ear. So much so that I had earrings on at the time. My ears started gushing blood. Yes.
Goodness.
And I had chunks of soap stuck in my eyelids.
Wow.
From the blow of his punches, yes.
That's some pent up rage. That's rage when you take it that far. That's rage.
And his wife was very much an enabler.
Sure.
She was very much a bystander in his abusive ways. Hmm. And it was always our fault because we pushed him over the edge.
Right. Of
Hmm.
course. Of
Yeah.
course. So I'm very curious, where does a 15-year-old run away to?
Um, in the church where I was when what I would go to, I still continued to go to that church. I still was still a very loving group of people, and the preacher of that church actually ended up being my godparent.
Okay.
Yep. So I actually ran to their house, and I was like, I'm not going back there. Like, I refuse.
Did they call the cops or anything? Because
They
that's,
ended up calling my caseworker because they were really good friend, not friends, but they had really good open line of communication with them, and they ended up taking me for a couple of days, and then I went to go stay with my family that I'm adopted by now. So I don't know if you're familiar, but in foster care, there's a thing called respite care.
I've heard the term, but explain what that is.
So if foster families need a break, or if they're going out of town or something, they will send these children into respite care. So basically, with another foster family
Mm-hmm.
to take care of them. So every summer, I would not stay with that family. I would go and stay with another family, which is my adoptive parents now.
Why is that necessary? Why can't you stay?
I don't know. They needed a
Why
break,
do
I
you need
guess.
a break?
I don't know. But that's where they would send us to. But in my eyes, I didn't mind because I loved being out there. My parents now lived out on a farm, and there was always lots to do, and they had lots of animals, and
But with all the craziness going on in this home, I wonder why you couldn't just stay in with your adoptive parents now.
think because I didn't really talk about what was going on. The
Gotcha.
caseworkers would come in and do visits and stuff, but I mean, if the caseworker is sitting in the living room of the home and the foster parent is right there on the other side of the wall, what are you going to say?
Yeah,
Like I
sure.
said, it's
I
better
am
to
just
deal with the known than the unknown.
then the unknown. I get that. I get that. I'm just floored at how these people are even passing to be able to
I,
do
I don't
to
know.
bring kids
So
into their home. And
when
then after he gets in, so they have the one family with the son who was being, the sexual abuse and whatever. Are you still sending kids to this house? I don't know.
and okay, so when we got taken away from them, they never got charged with abuse. The parents never got charged with any form of abuse. The son did.
Right.
Um,
But the parents are the legal guardian of the son because he was still a minor himself when he was doing
yes,
said things.
but they were not charged with any sort of physical abuse because they relinquished their rights. So somehow they worked out a deal. If you relinquish your rights to these children, we will not charge you with child abuse.
And we'll send more children to you, I'm sure.
I don't know if they adopted any more kids. I don't know. Never had contact with them after that, but those
Okay.
were the terms.
Okay, so now we're 15 and we're with your adoptive parents now. And
Yes.
is it just you or are your siblings still with you?
It was just me at the time. They took one of my younger sisters, and then my older sister, she would go back and forth between my adoptive family and the foster family. She would go back and forth. And then
Okay.
my younger brother and sister were placed in different homes as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So everything's good here?
Everything's good here.
Okay.
I lived with them, got adopted and stuff like that. My mom and I were like best friends. We talk all the time, sending texts, good morning texts, and call and stuff. And she's still a very very busy lady. So anytime I can get a hold of her, I'm like, finally you called. Um, but yes, we talk. I love her. She's like my best friend. Um, my father, on the other hand, no, we do not have a good relationship.
Okay.
We are not on talking terms. When the whole Black Lives Matters movement popped off, he had a lot of things to say in regards to all lives matter instead, which really struck a chord with me, knowing that he adopted children that were of the BIPOC community, myself included, as being Mexican, and then my sister, one of my sisters who's adopted, is Black, and my husband is Black, and my stepchildren are Black, and the children
Hmm.
we have together are mixed. So
I get it.
yeah,
I get it. I get it.
he
Okay.
had some things to say, and I said, if this is how you feel, like, I can't. I'm not going to bring my children around you if this is the mentality you have.
Got it. I understand. So I want to loop back around to your biological family. At
Okay.
what point do you connect with them?
I connected with them when I found them when I was 17.
How did you
So
find them?
it's a crazy story. Like, so detective like,
Girl,
right?
we got time. Come on.
Um, so when I was in my first family, they created what they called life books.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just basically a photo album with pictures and dates and times and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was telling my mother, I said, I really want to find my biological family. I want to see where I came from. I want to reconnect because I still remembered my mother and my older siblings that were not adopted and placed into foster care with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we would do CPS visits every now and then.
Okay.
So I have memories of seeing my mother and seeing my sisters. So I knew they were out there somewhere. They had to be.
Right.
So I remember going through this life book and I found a picture of me and my siblings in a little kiddie pool in the front yard of the foster family I was living at.
Okay.
And just being very detective like, I noticed street signs. I mean, I'm like, okay, I remember names. Okay, now I have a street. If I can just Google Maps it, I can pick out the house from memory,
Right.
and so I'm typing stuff into Google, reverse look up address, da da da, and I found the name of
Mm.
the foster father that took care of me when we first went there
Okay.
into the system. So I wrote a letter. I put my name in there. I put my phone number. And
And
then,
and just to be clear, this is the Mexican American family, the very
yes,
first family. Okay.
yes.
Okay.
So he called me back. And mind you, when I lived with that foster family, they were a little bit elderly. They were probably in their 50s, 60s when they took me.
Okay.
So I wrote a letter. I figured, that was probably the best way to reach them. And they called me and they're like, oh my God, we can't believe you found us.
Mm.
Yes. So I reconnected with them. Unfortunately, my foster mother at the time, she had passed away by the time I found them again. So I was a bit heartbroken with that because she was so loving. And then with my sisters, I did the same thing, reverse lookup, trying to find names. I had like 10 different names of my sister, like a whole list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just started calling number by number, leaving
Oh
messages.
wow.
Like, is this so and so? My name is so and so. I'm looking for my sister. A few of them picked up, said, oh, no, I'm so sorry. I'm not the one you're looking for. Some of them called back and said, wrong person. And then finally, one of the ones that I left a message on, it was my sister.
What was
Yes.
that like?
Intense. It was very intense. She was like, is that really you? Oh my God, I can't believe, we had no idea where you guys went. We didn't even know you guys moved.
Mm.
And then from there, I reconnected with my two other sisters, and I reconnected with my mother. Now, when I was living with the first adoptive family, I would always ask that mother about my biological mother.
And what would she say?
She told me she died. Yes.
So you grew up thinking that.
I grew up thinking she was dead.
How do you find out that she's alive?
I was talking on the phone with my sisters, and I said, when did mom pass? When did my mother pass? And they said, what are you talking about? She's still alive. She's still alive. We just saw her yesterday with the kids.
What do you say?
I'm floored.
Like how I am right now?
You think, because you have these expectations of how you're going to react, going to find her gravestone, going to lay flowers there, the conversations you're going to have with yourself, but with her spiritually. And now it's like, whoa, no, she's alive. So then you switch your mind frame, like, okay, I'm actually going to talk to a real person. I'm actually going to ask her about myself.
Why would
I'm
they
going to see
tell
where I
you
come from.
that? I mean, I know you don't know the answer to that. I'm just floored that they would tell you that. And then that's what you grew up thinking.
Yep.
And how old are you now when you find out that she's alive?
17.
Okay, we're still at 17.
So my adoptive mother now, she was very supportive of me finding them, but she said, just please
Sure.
wait until you graduate high school and you turn 18 and then, go explore, go find them, go meet them. So,
Okay, so let's talk about the meeting with your mom. Because
okay.
I would assume everyone's still in Texas.
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone's still living in the San Antonio area. So I ended up flying down there. I want to say so we ended up talking for like a year or so, and I ended up flying down there when I was like, after I was 18, barely turned 19. I took
Mm-hmm.
a trip down there to go see them, to meet my sister. And I met my mother. And I mean, I'm not going to say it was like, a storybook meeting. It was still awkward because you're meeting a stranger.
Yeah.
And it's like, by the way, I'm your kid. And I mean, she remembered me, what it looked like and stuff. But now I'm not a baby
You're an
anymore.
adult.
I'm
Yeah.
a grown adult, and I've already lived and experienced so much. I'm not the same person.
Sure.
I think what's really heartbreaking for me is that she mostly spoke Spanish. So communicating with her was very hard.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of the stuff I would have to ask her questions about, I'd have to go through my sister,
Mm-hmm.
who was raised in and around her during that time, growing up with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard because it's like you want to connect with someone on a certain level, but you have to go through another channel to do it. And not that it's, I'm taking away from my sister and the things that she did as far as being there and stuff, but it's just a different experience being able
Mm-hmm.
to connect with someone like
And
one.
what was she able to tell you about that time?
I feel like my mom, she was a, product of her environment and her circumstances in the place she grew up in.
Gotcha.
So I feel like the things that she was told by the state or by the CPS workers was not reality.
Mm.
So I feel like there was a lot of shadiness going on and a lot of things happening that she wasn't
Yeah.
aware of.
That she wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
So, at what point do you relearn Spanish?
So I'm still learning every day.
Okay.
I'm still trying to be more fluent. Like I take my Spanish lessons every day. I watch everything in Spanish that I can. I teach you my children Spanish. I live in Puerto Rico right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. So in the
Yeah.
last 3-4 years I've been here, I've picked up on my Spanish quite a bit.
Beautiful island. I was
Yes.
just there a couple years ago.
So for me, I really felt because my daughter, she's half Puerto Rican. So again, wanting to keep those cultural ties with her,
Sure.
I moved here so she could reconnect with her heritage as well and not lose sight of that because I know how important that is. And to have it and then not have it and still yearn for that.
T- Can you touch on that a little bit? What is it like as a transracial adoptee and you were literally just taken from your culture and then got to a point where they were like, and what you're not going to do is speak Spanish? What
Mhm.
does that did you just feel stripped? Did you just feel what do you feel like?
I feel, how do I say this? Because like I think even like within the Latin culture, you'll have people say, "Well, you're not really Mexican because you weren't born in Mexico." Or you're not really Puerto Rican because you weren't born on the island, you don't live here.
Mhm.
It's just, what's that saying? A Mexican's worst enemy is another Mexican. Like being, just bringing them down and stuff. And to be a transracial adoptee, like that wasn't my choice.
Sure, right, it
Even
wasn't.
even people that migrate to the U.S. for a better quality of life, they may not, they made that choice to help their future generations, to help their children now. And how do you fault someone for that?
Yeah.
They're still bringing their culture and their identity and their heritage with them. That doesn't make
Yeah.
them less because they're not back in the motherland.
So you were told that you were less than
Oh yeah, all the
all
time.
the
I mean, I
time.
still hear it now. "Oh, you don't speak Spanish. Oh, you don't know Spanish." And it gets really tiring when I have to be like, "Yeah, it was because I was adopted and my parents were white." And it's like, and I find myself like, why am I having to offer an explanation? Like, it is what it is.
I'm sure you encounter people just come up to you and just start speaking Spanish.
They do, and it makes it really hard for me because it's like, shit. And most of the time, I get most of what they're saying, but then when I try to say it back, I don't sound fluent. It's very broken,
Mm,
and it's like that insecurity and that
yeah,
imposter syndrome creeps in, and it's like you're not really Mexican, you're not really fluent, you're not really this, you're not really that. But it's like, is that me telling myself that, or is that what everybody's been telling
that's
me
what
that I
everyone's
keep
been telling
repeating
you
in
because
my
you
head?
absolutely are Mexican. You
Hmm.
are. Period.
So
Wow.
I think being a transracial adoptee adds more layers on it as far as having cultural identity issues and things like that. But
I,
yeah.
so oh girl. I love how you told your story because you told somebody needed to hear everything that you just said
Well, I mean, I
because
hope so. If it
you
helps somebody.
it's going to because you're looking at a survivor of a whole lot of things.
Hmm.
That's you have survived a lot. And so what I want you to do in closing to that little girl or little boy that's in foster care right now and it might not be going too well, what would you say to them to get through?
Man, what would I say to them? Depending on like the circumstances of where they're at, you're more than what people are telling you are. And like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like there really is. Once you become an adult and you get to make your own choices and for yourself, you can advocate for yourself and discover things beyond, well, I'm just a foster kid, or my parents didn't want me, or yeah, I'm adopted, but my parents don't really care about me. And that took a long time for me to understand that. Like, yeah, I'm adopted, but I'm also so many other things. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. You know, I serve in the armed forces. Like, I'm going to school right now. Like,
Thank you for your service.
thank you for your support. I appreciate it. There's so much I have created on my own besides what I was given as a child. And especially on that note, with what you're saying to foster children, I would also say to people who are foster parents and adoptive parents,
Yeah.
you really need to do the education and the work beyond just filling out the paperwork and getting a
Mm,
child. There's
mm,
so many layers that goes into it, especially getting children from different races. You need to advocate for them, and you need to stand up for them against other people. So if that means cutting off your family because they have racist things to say, if that means keeping those cultural ties to that child so that they grow up being enmeshed in their culture before they were taken out of it, that's what you need to do. And if you're not willing to do that extra homework, what comes with having a child of a different racial background, don't do it.
don't do it.
You're
I
just
did say that
adding.
was my last question, but you just said something, and I just want to ask you something else that I had not thought about until you just said it. When you were with those other families, going around other family members, what was that like?
I would say that, I don't know, I spent a lot of, I don't know if we really saw a whole bunch of other families, to be
Okay.
honest.
So, like, no, like their parents, like quote unquote grandparents,
Oh,
but
so
not
my
for
on my dad's side, like I said, we don't have a good relationship. His mother, my grandmother, oh God, she was very racist, very
real.
racist. And it was always the Mexicans this and Mexicans that and illegal aliens this and just trashing on it on my entire culture. Oh, but not you, honey.
Okay, girl.
Okay, but
Okay,
I'm
but
still part of that collective,
right.
and and I had to learn this the hard way. And it's not intentional from my adoptive family. I guess on both sides, because my dad, I feel like what he's, how he is, but my mother is, I was raised under that umbrella of
Yeah.
white privilege
Yeah.
by association, that proximity to whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got out of that,
Mm.
being an adult, a young adult
Mm-hmm.
trying to navigate myself in the world, oh, they don't see that you have white parents,
Not at
honey.
all.
You're
Not at
just another
all.
Mexican. Yeah.
Wow.
And those are things I had to learn the hard way, especially, dealing with microaggressions, dealing, being followed around the store, dealing with getting pulled over. Those are not things that were taught to me. this is what you have to look out for. Because I was raised under that privilege,
Under that privileged
the
umbrella.
white privilege.
Yeah. They don't
Those
have those
things don't happen to
conversations.
them.
No.
They don't have to deal with that.
No.
And it's not that, I speak to my mother about this too, and it's not that she didn't want to do it. She just didn't realize that's something I would have to deal with because it's something she never experienced herself.
Right. Which is like what you just said, ties directly into do your homework. If you don't want to have those types of conversations, then don't get a child that's not your race.
Yes.
Because it's a whole thing.
Yep.
Girl. That's all I can say is, girl. I want to thank you for sharing your story.
Yep. Thank you for inviting me and having me on here. And
because I promise you, somebody needed to hear everything you just said.
mm-hmm.
And I'm just looking at you and listening to you and just what you've become from what you don't look like what you've been through. Let me just say that.
a lot of skincare routines and stuff.
You don't look like what you've been through at all. You don't sound like what you've been through. None of that. So thank you again for coming on. Mm-hmm. And so give me a second. Don't leave me. And on that note, bye, family.
Journey on. You need a pie with the good? Oh, yeah, what's the one?